Last left off with a very deep and profound understanding of the nature of what it means to have Chaim. In a general sense, Rav Kook explained to us that Chaim means being in connection to the normative state of being of what that thing is, and in a specifically Jewish sense, what Rav Kook explained to us is that, as Moshe Rabbeinu tells us, "V'atem adveikim Hashem Elokechem Chaim kulchem hayom," is that our understanding of being alive, our experience of being alive, is in direct proportion to how deeply we are connected to the Ribbon Shalom, and that works in both directions. As we learned in the Arach Chaim HaKadosh last time, that as much as a Jew is connected to the Ribbon Shalom, we have chiyus, we experience chiyus, and the more that we continue to do that, the more that our literal physical life continues to operate as planned. Now, we ended off last time with a little bit of a spoiler, which is what we're going to develop Be'ez Hashem this afternoon. The spoiler that we noted was that there are times that a Jew has the capacity to get in touch with that Chaim, to get in touch with that source of life, to re-engage with what it means to be us, to be a Yid, to be able to experience life in its fullest extent. And we pointed out that on an individual level, the primary time for that is called Shabbos. Shabbos is that opportunity. And you'll see on page Gimel, Ois Gimel is fairly long in the Hakdama. We'll see how much of it we can get through today. We're going to at least try to get through a chunk of it, because you'll see how this parallels to Shmitta in a few moments. But let's begin. It says Rav Kook, Skulas ha'uma hatuv ha'eloki hatavua b'kirba, the specialness of our nation, which is, as we have defined already, hatuv ha'eloki hatavua b'kirba, the goodness of the Ribbon Shalom that is baked in, that is part of our DNA. Seder ha'olam ha'chaim ha'yisharim va'atovim, the way of life which is good and straight and operating appropriately. Hamas'imim el tzedek v'ayosher, that is in tune with righteousness and justice and goodness. Additionally, hasheket v'hashalva, quiet, peace, tranquility. Hachein v'ha'ometz, the chein, the grace, v'ha'ometz, and the power, the strength. Hamemula'im b'yistaklus elokis makefes, that is infused with a overarching, overwhelming, all-encompassing perspective of godliness, kefi ma shehi nimtzeis b'nishmas ha'uma, as is found in the soul of our nation. So that is all parenthetical to skulas ha'uma, right? The specialness of the Jewish people, parenthetically, as we have defined, says Rav Kook, means all of the goodness and tranquility and peace and success and perspective and success of a national morality. All of that is called skulas ha'uma, the uniqueness of our people. This needs to be expressed. So, end of parentheses. Fourth line in on paragraph Gimel, he says, Ein chayi hachol yecholim lahotzia min ha'koach halapa'el. Mundane life cannot extract that from potential to actuality. Meaning, that which is latent potential within the Jewish people, all of the amazing, good, positive, wonderful, great things that are part and parcel of who we are, without which we don't feel that we are alive and our life feels lost and miserable and disconnected, all of that needs to be activated. Cannot be activated by the mundanities of life. Meaning that there is a way in order to activate a particular kind of potential. This is true psychologically, this is true physically, this is true physiologically, that as much as an acorn contains within it everything that is necessary to grow an oak tree, it's not going to grow an oak tree unless it's planted in the ground and is growing. Right? An acorn on the shelf might have all of the potential in the world, but it's not going to grow anything. Because that's not how you get an acorn to grow. It's all there, but it cannot be activated, it cannot be actualized. Chaim Eile, these multifaceted, colorful, expressive, beautiful forms of life, the life, Chaim Eile, the life of Chol, of going to work, of taking out the garbage, of doing the taxes, going to the post office, all of that is incapable of bringing to life what real life is for a Jew. And not only that, they also have the capacity and capability, all of these activities, to hide, to shroud the internal and spiritual lofty beauty of the collective Jewish soul. Mundane life, on two sides. One, it doesn't activate the beauty of Jewish existence. And two, it also has the potential of hiding it. Turning over the page, center of Cook, not only that, uma'akbin es hazrachas oira habahir, v'hayosher l'toich metzius ha'chilonis ha'sheletes. And it prevents the shining rays of light, of righteousness, of straightness, of being able to be experienced within reality that is chilonis ha-sheletes, that is mundane as a general rule. Meaning, through the banal platitudes of normative day-to-day existence, the nature of the Jewish people is not activated and it can be lost. Not that it can be lost permanently, as we discussed last time. That cannot be lost permanently. But no, it'll just be an acorn sitting on a shelf. Might even be a very shiny acorn sitting on a shelf, but it's not going to be an oak tree. It's not going to grow. Techivas hagidul v'hishtalmus shel hachaim tzricha shedehei el hapoel al yidei nisinas revach shel havsaka v'hisna'arus mihumas hachaim harigila. In order to get Jewish life to grow in the way that Jewish life needs to grow, two things are necessary. Ingredient number one is nisinas revach, which means space, expansiveness, the possibility of doing this thing. And then in addition, there needs to be a hafsaka v'hisna'arus. There needs to be a pause, v'hisna'arus, and an awakening. These two things need to happen. To summarize what we've said very briefly, there is latent potential within the Jewish nation to become something, to become Am Segula. That latent potential to become an Am Segula is not able to be activated through the mundanities of day-to-day life and can be hidden and lost as a result of it. If we want to experience it, we want to activate it, we want to actuate all of these potentials, we need two things. One, to pause and create space, and the second is to awaken. Now we need to explain what these things mean. So Rav Kook explains as follows. Hayachid, the individual, you and me, misna'er mechaye hachol liprakim krivim. We are awakened from the life of mundanities on regular occasion. B'chol Shabbos, every Shabbos. As Chazal tell us, ba Shabbos, ba menucha. Shabbos comes, rest comes. So Shabbos arrives and gives us the opportunity for a pause. Now, we'll just brief interlude. We will point out that Shabbos exists in 3 stages, 3 dimensions, if you will. It is reflected by the 3 tefillos of Shabbos, Shachris, Mincha, Maariv. Musaf, not for now. Shachris, Mincha, Maariv, and Shabbos, you've been davening your whole lives, but I don't know if you've ever taken note of the fact that Shabbos is the only day of the year that Shachris, Mincha, and Maariv have a different Shemana Esrei. Right? Meaning, the week has the same Shemana Esrei, the same 19 brachas, the same bakashas. Shabbos, Shachris, Maariv, Shachris, Mincha are all different tefillos, meaning the nusach of the tefillah is different. Now, the bracha is Mekadesh Shabbos. That's all the same. But the nusach of the bracha, the way that we ask the request of Shabbos, that which is the bakasha, and I say that parenthetically because sort of ish a bakasha, but not. What's referred to as Kedushas Hayom, the bracha of Kedushas Hayom. So that is different on Shabbos than any other day of the year, and it is different. Shachris, Mincha, Maariv are all different. Even the Yom Neraim are all the same tefillah. All the same tefillah, aside from Musaf. Musaf is unique to each Yom Tov. We'll say this just very briefly. The Sfas Emes points out that this is the first piece on Shabbos HaGadol in the Sfas Emes, if you're ma'ayin, that Shabbos HaGadol, we'll say it within the context of these parshas because we're getting to the parshas of Golus and Geula. Shabbos HaGadol, says the Sfas Emes, is called Shabbos HaGadol. Everybody's got a reason for it. Says the Sfas Emes because b'Shabbos zois nisgadla haShabbos. Shabbos became greater when Klal Yisrael was ready to leave Mitzrayim. What does it mean Shabbos became greater? So you will note that Shabbos has, at least twice in history, taken on a new dimension. The first dimension of Shabbos is what we refer to as Shabbos Boracious. That the Torah speaks about in Parshas Boracious. And that is what we refer to on Friday night. Right? Vayichulu hashamayim ba'aretz v'chol tzva'am. That the Rebbeinu Shalom finishes making Shabbos. Vayichal Elokim b'yayim hashim malachta asher asa. Vayishbos b'yayim hashim mikol malachta asher asa. The Shabbos that we refer to on Friday night is the Shabbos of the Rebbeinu Shalom. That is the Rebbeinu Shalom Shabbos. What is the avoda of that Shabbos? This is Rashi in Maseches Chulin. Chazal tell us that somebody that is Mechalel Shabbos b'far Hesya is as if they are an Ovid Avodah Zarah. Right? Somebody that's Mechalel Shabbos b'far Hesya. This has had immense halachic ramifications for many generations. That somebody that is a flagrant violator of Shabbos is a denier of the divinity of God. Why? So Rashi explains in Maseches Chulin, because if I accept that God created heaven and earth, then I would observe Shabbos. Because Shabbos is testimony. Kivoy Shabbos mikol malachtai. That's when the Rebbeinu Shalom stops. Good. The Medrash tells us this week's parsha that Moshe Rabbeinu made a deal with Paro. He said, I think it would be a good thing for Jews to keep Shabbos. Right? What does it mean that the Jews should keep Shabbos in Mitzrayim? What, they had Cholent, they had Kugel, they for sure had a Kiddush club. Yes? Definitely. Poshet. That's already from Avram Avinu, right? That's an old Messiah, right? Yeah, what does it mean? What were they doing? What was... Stopped work. That's all that they did. That was the original Shabbos. Kivoy Shabbos mikol malachtai. From hard work, or whatever it might be. It was a cessation of labor. But then there is an additional level of Shabbos, and that's what we refer to on Shabbos morning. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oisi la'olam. What's that mean? that there is an additional madrega of Shabbos, which is not just a cessation of labor, but it is a reconnecting of a relationship between us and the Ribono Shel Olam. It's not just I'm not working in testimony to Hashem not working. It's not just acquiescing and acknowledging the creator of the universe. It is also, now that you're not working, well, what are you going to do with your time? Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, that this is something that now exists between us and the Ribono Shel Olam. That's an additional layer of Shabbos. So that's how the Sfas Emes says, when we left Mitzrayim, so nizgad laha Shabbos. Shabbos now takes on a different madrega. Now there is a third madrega of Shabbos that we have not yet been zeicha to, and that is Ato echad v'shimcha echad mi ka'amcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. That's the final madrega of Shabbos. That is the unification of the Jewish people and the world in Eretz Yisrael. And that's what we spoke about the first two sessions of Mi Ka'amcha Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz, is that the Jewish people only are this Goy Echad Ba'aretz in Eretz Yisrael. That is the eventual destiny of Shabbos. There will yet be another Shabbos Hagadol. We have not yet been zeicha to it, but we'll get there, right? That's the Ravid the Ravin, right? That's the Shalashudus of the Bria. We haven't quite gotten there yet. But that's the third madrega of Shabbos, the third layer, the third level of Shabbos. But even within our not yet complete understanding of the world, says from time to time we have the opportunity to wake ourselves up from, or to be awakened from, that's misna'er, from the chaye hachol, from the mundanities of life. And that is b'chol Shabbos ba menucha. This lashon misna'er is important to point out, yeah, because this is the lashon of lechadodi, his'ori, right? Right, and hisna'ari me'afar kumi. There is lina'er and lehis'orer. We have these two nuschos to be awakened. That's lehis'orer. What does lehisna'er mean? So this is an important phrase and klal. To be misna'er. So Rav Hirsch points this out. This is a Kedai Marimakim to take a look at. This is Rav Hirsch on the pasuk Ki Yetzer Leiv Adam Ra Minu Urav. Rav Hirsch has a long essay explaining what the notion of na'ar is. Lina'er means to stir, to stir, to stir up, to stir up. That's why teenagers are called na'arim, because they stir things up. They are stirrers. And that could be lataiv, and sometimes not always lataiv. But that's the notion of na'ar. Wherever you see the word na'ar, whenever somebody is called a na'ar in Chumash, na'ar is this capacity to stir up. Yes. So, yes. Yitzchak is a na'ar, and Yaakov is a na'ar. Yosef is the paradigmatic na'ar. V'hu na'ar. That's what it means. Also, that's B'nai Rachel, B'dafke Na'arim, Yuvarech Es Ha Ne'arim. It's good, but we'll get there. Yeshua is a Na'ar. We'll get there. That's just important to put in context. That capacity, Ayochid Misna'er, we are stirred up from the mundanities of life, awakened, stirred up, we are prodded from the mundanities of life every Shabbos. Ba Shabbos ba menucha. Shabbos comes, menucha comes. Mascheles hanefesh lehistachrer mikbaleha hakoshim. A person begins to free themselves from the chains that are holding us. Yes. Yeah, not for now. But yes, not for now. We'll come back to that. I want to at least get through this paragraph. We'll see. He says, "Mascheles hanefesh leishtachrer michavlei hakoshim b'yoyim hiniach Hashem alekach lecha me'atzvecha u'mirogzecha u'min ha'avodah hakasha asher ubad bach." That lashon of the pasuk in Yeshaya, that There is a day upon which HaKadosh Baruch Hu frees us from all of our frustration, all of our anger, and all of our work that is operating on us. There is a freedom that is experienced when a Jew enters Shabbos. The Me'er Shilach the Ishbitzer points out that you find the Lashon in active and passive, that when Shabbos comes, Pasuk says, Loi sa'aseh kol malacha, and the Pasuk also says, Loi se'aseh kol malacha. Loi sa'aseh kol malacha means don't do work. Se'aseh is in the passive voice, right? That no work should be done by you, right? What does that mean? Is that when Shabbos arrives, a person feels a disconnect from the avodah. It's not like now I can't do work. It's Shabbos arrives and there isn't work that I can do. I'm divorced from that. I'm separated from it. It's distant from me. There's that feeling of, okay, when Shabbos arrives, Zehu. And that we feel on a very pragmatic and emotional level. Shabbos arrives, Nigmar. It is no longer in my hands. And as a result of the freedom that is granted by Shabbos, a person has an opportunity to engage in nisivos elyonos, in lofty pathways. Chafatzim ruchaniyim, desires that are of a spiritual nature. Kafi teva mikara, and this is the key line. Kafi teva mikara, in accordance with the nature of who we are. As the pasuk says, "Tov le'odos la'Hashem ulezamer l'shimcha elyon lahagid b'boker chastecha ve'emunascha b'leilos ali asav ali nove ali higoyim b'chinor." What is the context of this pasuk? Everybody knows Tov le'odos la'Hashem. What's the context of this pasuk? This is Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos. If you read Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos, you know what it doesn't talk about at all? Shabbos. It's not there. Shabbos is not mentioned in Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos. We have a Masarech Chazal tell us that who wrote Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos? Adam HaRishon. Adam HaRishon says Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos after the Chet of eating from the Eitz Hadas Tevurah. So Adam HaRishon is told all of these terrible things are going to happen to you, but he's not kicked out of Gan Eden yet. He's kicked out of Gan Eden on Motzei Shabbos. Right? Motzei Shabbos, he is thrown out of Gan Eden. Shabbos, he gets to spend in Gan Eden the good graces of the Lord. Right? Hashem lets him stay in Gan Eden until Motzei Shabbos. Right? Because he can't travel on Shabbos. So what does that mean? What means does that he can't go anywhere on Shabbos? It means that Adam HaRishon, that Shabbos, experiences all of that grandeur of what it means to not be able to do anything, not be able to go anywhere on Shabbos. Baruch Hashem for that, right? He knows that like tremendous terror is approaching when Motzei Shabbos arrives, but for now we're good. Tov l'odos la'Hashem, l'zamer l'shimcha elyon. It's good. This is good. This is good. It's nice. It's beautiful. There's a certain tranquility that arrives when Shabbos arrives. There's nothing else we can do. Zehu zeh. Whatever you have, you have. Whatever you don't have, you don't have. Nigmar. Nigmar. That's it. People that, especially, you speak to people that have like a very, very busy season. So they're working mamish until like at the last minute. And then Shabbos arrives and then, okay, whatever, whoever's calling me to, can't do anything. There's nothing to do. There is nothing to do. This also is why, I'll get your question in 1 second. This is also why the tremendous nephilas that human beings have on Motzei Shabbos. That's baked into our psyche. Like the teva of the bria is this feeling on Motzei Shabbos. The craziest things in the world always happen on Motzei Shabbos, right? People do meshuggah things Motzei Shabbos. Like it's like the world loses its kishkas. Motzei Shabbos, like people go nuts because it's like, say what? Right, exactly. No, what do you say, Tali? Yes. No, 100%. But there's, at a certain point in time, it might not happen the minute that Shabbos starts, which is why we have a din of Tosefes Shabbos. You're supposed to start a little earlier, so that at least by the time Shabbos arrives, you're like disconnected from it. But when you wake up Shabbos morning, for sure, forget it, right? There's nothing to talk about, right? Yeah, I can't answer the phone, can't check the email, so that's what it is. It is what it is, right? There's no other, it's still hard, right? Yeah. I agree with you. The challenge exists. The challenge is chai v'kayim. Takes time. Takes time to get to a place to be able to disconnect from it. Yeah. So what we will describe, you wanted to know, is in this Mizmar Shel Yom Shabbos talking about the next world. So there is a deep parallel to Shabbos and the next world, and we talk about this all the time, right? Me'ein olam haba yom Shabbos menucha. Shabbos is a hint of the next world, and we'll describe what some of that means a little bit later. We're gonna make those connections. People that wanted to sell cars on Shabbos, I don't know, right? Shabbos, yeah.
The part about Adam Rishon in Shabbos, is that in the Medrash? That's not in the.
It's in the Medrash. Yeah. Okay, so says Rav Kook as follows. There's a type of Hashem this beautiful song of Shabbos. It says, but in addition, and this is what we just described earlier from the Sasamis, there are two parts to this. There is a cessation of labor, and then there is now the opportunity to engage in other pursuits. It becomes now possible to think about and dwell upon other thoughts and ideas once we have broken away from the mundanities of life. Yom Kodesh Asher Bait is Galen Tias Ha'uma, a day of transcendence in which the trajectory of the nation can be revealed. Hanetiyah Shel HaChaim HaElokim K'mo Shehem. The way, the leaning, the inclination of the nation to experience life in a godly way, as is our nature, beyichideha, in our uniqueness. Ois hi le'uma. This is, how is Shabbos an ois? What is it an ois of? It's a sign of what? So, ois hi le'uma, it is a sign of our status, our nature as a nation, that we have both a need and a capacity to appreciate, to enjoy being connected to Hashem. We enjoy that. Raya that we enjoy this, and this is just worth considering, if you would ever try to explain to a non-Jewish friend or colleague the geschmack of a bowl of cholent after a hashkama minyan in a styrofoam bowl with a cheap plastic fork. Depends on in Galicia versus Litvaks, no? Right? One of those, and that you're going to stand around and eat this thing. And this is like the biggest simcha in life. Right? Me'ein olam haba. Right? Like, and people not only are gonna want it, they're gonna fight over it. They're gonna fight over it. Right? It depends who makes it, right? That's gewaldig, right? That thing that you cannot describe, meaning you got like these fancy dinners, like whatever it is, like $500 per person to go to this fancy. You don't get as much of a geschmack from that as you do from the bowl of cholent Shabbos morning. Right, yeah, 100%. You won't get the same geschmack. He said because there's no speeches. See, but even if there would be a chabura, even if there would be a speech, it's not the same. There is that's tongue in cheek, but there is a tzorech, there is a deep need that a Jew has for Shabbos, and a yecholos and a capacity, both a need and a capacity. The rest of the world does not have the need, and they do not have the capacity. It comes together. We need it, and we are able to accept this thing called Shabbos. Jews love Shabbos. It's a Meshuggah thing. Meshuggah thing that Jews love Shabbos. For anybody else in the world, it would be like impalatable. Yeah, you can't do it. You cannot do it. I'll get to it in 1 second. I'll tell you. Everybody agrees that vacation is important. Everybody agrees that vacation is important. Everybody agrees, all of the productivity gurus and all the self-help books, everybody agrees that it's important to take breaks. But speak to a tax guy in tax season and ask him how many breaks he's taking. Right? There you go. Right? How many breaks? No, well, this time of year I don't. But a year to year takes breaks. We have a need for it and we have a capacity for it. And sometimes it takes a while to train ourselves to enjoy that. But you do it for long enough and you can't live without Shabbos. Shabbos is Shabbos. It's just... When you explain to somebody that you have whole families, multiple generational families over a 3-day yontif, and nobody turns on a screen. Like, you think you're out of your mind. And yet, we do it. And not only do we do it, we're excited about it. We enjoy it. We don't think that, try on a random Tuesday not to turn on a screen. You'll experience what that means. For the rest of the sudden that they just can't do it. Yeah, what'd you say? Okay, so let's quickly finish off this paragraph. He says, "V'noyam Eloki ha miskanis linekuda ruchanis shel nishama yisera sharui b'libo shakol yachid mibaneha." Now, this is effectively what Rav Kook has done, is define something that you've heard about many, many times and have never known what that means. This is what's called, says Rav Kook, the Nishama Yisera. Nishama Yisera. Nishama, we don't have time now to define. I don't think we do. Nishama Yisera means an additional capacity to be able to appreciate something that ordinarily we would not appreciate. We'll say this very briefly. Very, very briefly. The Medrash Rabbah tells us, and this is all over the Zohar HaKadosh, but it's a Medrash Rabbah in Parshas Boracious, that human beings, we have 5 layers of Nishama, right? 5 layers of soul, collectively called Nishama, right? What are the 5 layers? Any Sfardim in the room? Sfardim usually. Say what? Yeah, so this is Sfardim, you see this in Sfardim Sidurim, they talk about this a lot. Naran Chai. Nephesh, Ruach, Nishama, Chai, Yechida. Chai, Yechida, we're not going to talk about. Nephesh, Ruach, and Nishama are words that we all interchange regularly, right? Nephesh, soul. Ruach, soul. Nishama, soul, right? What's main stuff? What are all of these things? I'll explain to you very, 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 like, mamish al regel achas. Nephesh, Ruach, Nishama. Works as follows. Nephesh is the thing that all living things have. Anybody have a dog? Has a nephesh. Anybody have a hot dog? Had a nephesh, right? Nephesh. Nephesh is that will of Hashem that a thing should be alive. Human beings have a big nephesh, right? Because our being alive is, we are capable of many, 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 many things. Many things. That's a nephesh. A person can, I can talk, and I can run around, and I can jump, and I can do it. That's all nephesh. That is my capacity, who I am. Ruach is the ability that I have to achieve more. Those are skills, capacities. I'm not that now. but I could be. Meaning I could do certain things. I'm not capable of doing it, but I could. Nishama is what I could perceive myself being. So Nephesh is where I am, Nishama is where I could be, and Ruach is the skills that I have in order to close that gap. That's Nephesh, Ruach, Nishama. Now, sometimes you find, by the way, that somebody has an enormous Nishama. They have like the loftiest, highest, greatest aspirations in the world, but they have a very, very, very limited Ruach. Just no way of getting there. Massive dreams, no capacity to get there. Sometimes you find somebody that has enormous capacity, but no dreams. No neshama, meaning very limited. Like they can't, they are incredibly skilled, but don't know how to get anywhere. Neshama, understand this well, neshama is the horizon. The closer you get to it, the more that there is to see. Now, when a person moves from where they are to where they can be, then that which was neshama becomes nefesh. Becomes who you are, right? There is a continuous growth. Shabbos is an opportunity for neshama yisera, means we have enhanced perspective. And that's what Rav Kook is speaking about here. There is an enhanced perspective that a Jew is capable of when Shabbos arrives, which is we have the capacity, that's ruach, but to see more, to think of more, to dream of more. That's called neshama yesera. We can appreciate more where we are now. It's an additional perspective. That's called neshama yesera. That, by the way, is pshat in Rashi in Maseches Beitza on Oichlin V'Sheitim Ve'ein Katz Mehem. What people normatively say that on Shabbos you don't gain calories. You do. We'll just say that outright. You do gain calories on Shabbos, right? You gain weight on Shabbos. But a person can have a perspective on what to do with that additional energy that you don't normatively have during the week. That's called Neshama Yisera. All of this is what Rav Kook has spoken about. It is the fullest expression of what it means to be alive as a Jew, is experienced on an individual level on Shabbos. And what Rav Kook is going to tell us next time is that which the individual experiences on Shabbos, the nation experiences during Shemitah. See you then.